there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and today is November 6th. As we enter the quiet days of late autumn, I wanted to share some seasonal reflections from a few of my favorite garden writers. First up is an excerpt from the book Green Thoughts by Eleanor Perrine. Eleanor writes about the unexpected joys of this season: a surprise visit from migrating swans, a late hummingbird still seeking nectar from the last few flowers. She reflects on the hopeful act of burying spring bulbs, tucking them in for their winter's rest, and dreaming of their colorful emergence in a few months' time. This is an excerpt from her chapter called Autumn. As the natural world prepares to shut up shop, the gardener may be inclined to do the same. But as most of us know, fall is the busiest season of the year. Where I live, she lived in Connecticut, it is also one of the pleasantest to be outdoors. The scent of burning leaves is, alas, no longer with us. Burning trash is forbidden in the village. I don't really mind, because I can now either bag or steal the bags of leaves unwisely set out for collection by the inorganic neighbors and add them to our store. There are epiphanies to make up for that loss. Swans are on the increase in our marshes, and on a misty autumn morning, when I am hard at work, a wedge of them may fly overhead, so low that I hear the rustle of their pinions, a heart-stopping sound. Hummingbirds, too, visit at this time of year, pausing in their incredible flight to Central and South America, and the warblers, likewise, en route from wherever they spend the summer. There is a feeling of suspense. When will the final curtain fall? Heavier dews presage the morning when the moisture will have turned to ice, glazing the shriveled dahlias and lima beans, and the annuals will be blasted beyond recall. These deaths are stingless. I wouldn't want it otherwise. I gardened one year in a tropical country and found that eternal bloom led to ennui. Up here, I bury my bulbs in the same spirit that the squirrel, my enemy, goes about his work. He will find the chestnuts he has hidden in the rose garden when he needs them. So will I when they sprout next spring. And my bulbs will come up in due course. A little excerpt on planting spring bulbs from Eleanor Perrine, proving that gardeners are by nature an optimistic lot. We plant in faith that spring will come again. Our second reading today comes from the inflappable Carl Chopik, who takes a more humorous approach in his book, The Gardener's Year. He describes the annual scramble to gather pots, soil, and tools for planting spring bulbs, always misplacing something along the way. His wry words remind us to laugh at ourselves as we putter about in our gardens, knowing perfection isn't necessary for enjoyment. This little reading is from the end of Carl's book called The Gardener's Year, and it's in his chapter called The Gardener's November. But even you, who have no bed of soil of your own, can worship nature in this autumn time. That is by planting bulbs of hyacinths and tulips in pots, which during winter will either freeze or open into flower. It is done like this. You buy any bulbs you like, and from the nearest gardener, you get a sack of nice compost. Then you look for all the old flower pots in the cellar and in the loft and put one bulb in each. At last you find that you still have some bulbs, but no flower pots. You buy more pots, and then you discover that you have no bulbs but pots and soil left over. After that, you buy a few bulbs more, but because again you have not soil enough, you buy a new sack of compost. Then again, some soil remains over, which of course you don't like to throw away. So you decide to buy more pots and bulbs. In this way, you go on until people at home put a stop to it. Then you fill the windows, tables, wardrobes, larder, cellar, and loft with them. And quietly and confidently, you await the coming winter. I love that one. That is so true, isn't it? This last reading is from a man named Steve Kelly, who runs Kelly & Kelly Nursery. It's a family nursery that's been around for generations. He wrote this lovely book that I purchased the last time I visited there. It's called A Century in the Garden, and I was so glad that he still had a copy that I could buy. Anyway, the excerpt that I'm going to read to you today touches on the bittersweet task of removing a beloved but ailing tree. As the leaves drop, we can assess the garden with clear eyes and make hard decisions. And while it's painful to say goodbye to a leafy friend, this time of year is ideal for pruning and taking out trees that are damaged beyond saving. Here's an excerpt from Steve Kelly, A Century in the Garden. And this is just a little excerpt from his chapter called A Visit from the Tree Guy. We are reminded that trees are living markers amongst us, marking weather across the seasons. Encrusted with snow, frost, and ice in winter, dressed to the nines with pink or white blossoms in spring, buffeted by wind and pelted by rain during the storms of summer, and acting as foils for fall sun, which theatrically backlights every twig and branch. Common sightings all, but aren't such workaday displays wonderful? They're the gist of our lives. So the loss of a tree, well, only those who have experienced the loss of a tree can understand the sense of that loss. Both Arla and I knew the old crabapple tree in the garden out west had to go. Yet we debated the pros and cons for years. We had to admit that the tree, seen from across the landscape in spring, furnished in its best white frock, was a fantastic sight. Then again, for years, we'd put up with the slimy, stinky mess of fallen crab apples in the fall, and the swarms of deer they inevitably attract. Then again, it did provide welcome shade. But it was no great shakes of a tree, having been disfigured and diminished by storms. Then again, it did provide welcome shade. But its shallow roots didn't endear the tree to the garden or the gardeners. Oh dear, a teeter-totter of emotions. The crabapple tree might be standing yet, had we not had the occasion to call in the tree guy last winter to look after some routine maintenance elsewhere on the property. A snap decision. The chainsaws roared. And there you have it, a little excerpt from A Visit from the Tree Guy in this book called A Century in the Garden by Steve Kelly. Just a wonderful little book produced by one of our local nurserymen. This month, whether we are planting bulbs or making peace with loss, the November Garden teaches us to let go while holding on to hope. Tuck that wisdom away as you prepare your own patch of earth for its winter sleep. It's time for today's botanical history. It was on this day, November 6th, in 1868, that the botanist and garden writer Alice Lounsberry was born in New York City. From a young age, Alice developed a deep love for the natural world, exploring the gardens and parks around her hometown. By her mid-20s, her passion and knowledge had earned her a place on the board of the New York Botanical Garden. But it was Alice's collaboration with a renowned Australian botanical illustrator named Ellis Rowan that truly brought her work to life. Their meeting was a serendipitous one. When Ellis fell ill during a trip to New York, Alice hand-delivered a bouquet of wildflowers to her hospital room, along with a note that read, "From one flower seeker to another, and an admirer of your work." Well, this gesture touched Ellis deeply, and the two women, despite a 20-year age difference, forged an instant connection. Together, Alice and Ellis embarked on a journey through the American South, documenting the region's lush flora in words and watercolors. As Alice later wrote in the preface to their book, Southern Wildflowers and Trees, to learn something of the history, the folklore, and the uses of southern plants, and to see rare ones growing in their natural surroundings, Mrs. Rowan and I traveled in many parts of the South, always exercising our best blandishments to get the people of that section to talk with us. Through the mountainous region, we drove from cabin to cabin, and nowhere could have we met with greater kindness and hospitality. The duo's partnership yielded 3 beloved books: A Guide to the Wildflowers that came out in 1899, describing around 500 wildflowers. And then A Guide to the Trees came out the following year and detailed nearly 200 trees and shrubs. And then, of course, the previously mentioned Southern Wildflowers and Trees, which was published in 1901. Sadly, their time together was marked by tragedy when Ellis received word that her only son had died in South Africa at the age of 22. Though Alice continued to write after her collaboration with Ellis ended, her later works never quite achieved the same level of acclaim. Still, her love for gardens never wavered. In her 1910 book, Gardens Near the Sea, she mused, "For a garden is not only a place in which to make things grow and to display the beautiful flowers of the earth, but a place that should accord with the various moods of its admirers. It should be a place in which to hold light banter, a place in which to laugh, and besides, should have a hidden corner in which to weep." Alice Lounsberry passed away on November 20th, 1949, at the age of 81, leaving behind a legacy of botanical passion and a body of work that continues to inspire gardeners and nature lovers to this day. As she once wrote, "The columbine has a fearless heart and a spirited courage. It is never afraid." The same could certainly be said of Alice herself. And it was on this day, November 6th in 1885, that the renowned British botanist and explorer Frank Kingdon-Ward was born in Manchester, England. The son of a distinguished botanist, Frank seemed destined to follow in his father's footsteps, and indeed he would go on to surpass even his father's considerable achievements in the field. Kingdon-Ward's passion for botanical exploration knew no bounds. Over the course of nearly 5 decades, he embarked on some 25 major expeditions, venturing deep into the remote wilderness where Tibet, China, India, and Burma converge. His travels took him through river gorges, across wind-swept plateaus, and up the lofty peaks of the Himalayas, all in search of rare and elusive plant species. And what treasures he found! Kingdon-Ward was responsible for introducing numerous varieties previously unknown in the West, including the legendary Tibetan blue poppy, the giant cowslip, and countless rhododendrons. He waxed poetic about the floral riches of the East, once writing, "You may wander for days, ankle deep, through a chromatic surf of rhododendrons. It is western Sichuan, the Tibetan marshes, home of the Laponicum rhododendrons." Though he continued collecting well into his later years, Kingdon-Ward's swan song plant was arguably the exquisite Lilium Maclinii, discovered jointly with his second wife and named in her honor. Even at age 68, he was still climbing to elevations of over 8,000 feet and uncovering new species. Frank Kingdon-Ward left an indelible mark on the world of horticulture and exploration. His legacy lives on in the countless gardens graced by the plants he introduced, and in the tales of his daring expeditions that continue to inspire new generations of adventurers. Truly, he was one of the last great plant hunters, a breed of explorer, the likes of which we may never see again. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Favorite Poems for the Garden by Bushel and Peck Books. Well, this charming hardcover book, released in April of 2022, is a veritable bouquet of pastoral poems that celebrate the sights, sounds, and scents of the country garden. Within its pages, you will find beloved works by literary luminaries like Emily Dickinson, Robert Frost, and Edna St. Vincent Millay, among many others. The poems in this collection evoke the magic and wonder of the garden, from the hopeful promise of spring to the languid beauty of summer and the bittersweet fading of autumn. Take, for instance, these lines from Robert Frost's Putting in the Seed. You come to fetch me from my work tonight when the supper's on the table, and we'll see if I can leave off burying the white, soft petals fallen from the apple tree. Soft petals, yes, but not so barren quite. Mingled with these, smooth bean and wrinkled pea. And go along with you ere you lose sight of what you came for and become like me, slave to a springtime passion for the earth. How love burns through the putting in the seed, on through the watching for that early birth, when just as the soil tarnishes with weed, the sturdy seedling with arched body comes shouldering its way and shedding the earth crumbs. A perfect little poem for the gardener in the spring, putting in the seed, by Robert Frost. Well, as the publisher notes, blossoms bloom and bees buzz in this inspiring collection of garden poems. And at just 98 pages, this compact volume is the perfect gift for the poetry lover or passionate gardener in your life. Its beautiful design and timeless content are sure to provide inspiration and delight for years to come. You can get a copy of Favorite Poems for the Garden by Bushel and Peck Books and support the show by using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $12. We end the show today with a Botanic Spark that features Martha Turnbull, mistress of Rosedown Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. It was on this day, November 6th, in 1836, that Martha penned the very first entry in what would become a remarkable 59-year chronicle of life and gardening in the antebellum South. The opening lines of her diary for this day, written in Martha's distinctive shorthand, read, November 6th, planted rose cuttings, shrubs, etc., very dry. Well, this seemingly simple notation belies the rich horticultural world that Martha had already established at Rosedown. Her etc. notation tells us that rose cuttings were just one of the many plants in her propagation pipeline, which also included shrubs like the gardenia, pittosporum, boxwood, and myrtle. These evergreen hedges would eventually border the winding paths and geometric beds of her grand pleasure garden. Recovered from a descendant's attic in the 1990s, Martha's Garden Diary offers an unparalleled window into plantation life and the pivotal role that gardens played in the lives of planter families. Through her meticulous records, we see Martha not just as an avid gardener, but as a well-read and innovative one, eager to experiment with the newest plants and techniques gleaned from horticultural magazines and books. Under Martha's green thumb, Rosedown's gardens grew to an impressive 18 acres, blending formal European elements with picturesque winding paths. She had a particular fondness for plants from the Orient, like cryptomeria, azaleas, and crepe myrtles, and she amassed one of the earliest camellia collections in the Deep South. Many of her beloved plants still thrive at Rosedown today. But Martha's story is one of resilience as much as horticulture. She endured the tragic losses of her husband and 2 sons, shouldered the burdens of managing the plantation during the Civil War, and persevered through the hardships of Reconstruction. Through it all, her gardens and her diary were a constant source of solace and purpose. Transcribed and annotated by the landscape historian Suzanne Turner, the Garden Diary of Martha Turnbull, mistress of Rosedown Plantation, is more than just a record of one woman's horticultural endeavors. It is a testament to the courage, determination, and quiet strength of a remarkable Southern gardener, and a priceless glimpse into a lost world. As we've journeyed through the garden today, we've encountered the stories of 3 remarkable individuals: Alice Lounsberry, Frank Kingdon-Ward, and Martha Turnbull. Though separated by time and distance, they shared a common passion for the natural world and a dedication to exploring, documenting, and cultivating its wonders. From Alice's delightful collaborations with Ellis Rohn to Frank's intrepid expeditions in the Himalayas and Martha's meticulous stewardship of Rosedown Plantation, these tales remind us of the enduring power of gardens to inspire, heal, and connect us across the centuries. As the days grow shorter and the autumn chill settles in, it's tempting to bid farewell to our gardens until spring returns. But the November garden holds its own quiet magic, a time for reflection, gratitude, and planning for the seasons ahead. So let's take a cue from the poets in our book recommendation today and find beauty in the fading light, in the rustling leaves, and in the dormant seeds that hold the promise of future blooms. For as Martha Turnbull knew so well, tending a garden is an act of faith, a testament to the resilience of nature and the human spirit alike. Well, that's it for today's show. In the spirit of autumn, I will leave you with these words from Robert Frost's poem, November Guest. My sorrow, when she's here with me, thinks these dark days of autumn rain are beautiful as days can be. Well, may we all find some solace and beauty in the November garden. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.